I will get started, and I'm sure we'll have some more people joining us. But I am Teresa Slottick. I'm with Literacy Minnesota, and today we're going to talk about Northstar. And Northstar has kind of a subscription version and a free version, and we'll be talking about both of those so you can see and hear the difference. So today, we'll go over a little bit who Literacy Minnesota is. And we are, the organization that has created Northstar. Then we'll talk how Northstar started so you can understand why we do the things we do and the way we do them. But we'll spend really most of the time talking about what is in Northstar. So going over the assessments that are there, the instructor-led curricula, the self-directed online learning, and then of course that's tied to a learner management system for learners to track their progress, and then reports for staff to track their progress. So what I'm going to talk about today, all of this is in the subscription version, but I'll tell you which of it is also in the free version and how they're different. Because many organizations do use the free version. The subscription version is fairly inexpensive. It's $500 for a year's subscription for one organization. So we'll talk about that more at the end too. But Literacy Minnesota, we are a nonprofit. We've been around for about, this is our 50-year anniversary this year. And we focus on adult literacy. And we ourselves have 5 schools in the Twin Cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul. As you can guess, I'm coming to you from Minnesota. And 4 of those focus on English language learning, reading, writing, numeracy, citizenship, and of course, digital literacy. And then the 5th one focuses solely on digital literacy. And that school is across the street from a workforce center. So people are coming into the workforce center looking for jobs, and maybe they want a job that they don't have the digital skills for. So we partner with the workforce center to provide that instruction. And we're also housed in a Goodwill, who has kind of higher level training programs that they often require Northstar assessments to be completed before someone joins the training program, so that they're more, so they're ready to participate in the training. We also provide statewide training in Minnesota to volunteers and teachers who are working with adults in literacy. And because of that, we have a lot of free resources on our webpage, which is listed there in the last bullet right here, that people around the world access. So if you are working with adults on any kind of literacy, I highly, highly encourage you to check it out. 95% of it is free. There is just a lot of resources, a lot of great things for you there. So please do that. We also nationally have a group that does advocacy called Open Door Collective. And this is a group of nationwide experts in the field, but there's also just regular people. We believe in advocating for legislation around adult literacy, funding around adult literacy, and research around adult literacy, in the belief, and our mission is that of poverty reduction through literacy. And because we believe that not only adult education isn't the only kind of sector with this focus, we also include sectors such, people from sectors like healthcare, prison reform, labor, workforce, elder population, immigration, because we believe that all of those groups have similar missions and serve similar populations. And then, of course, we do digital literacy, which we're going to talk about today through Northstar. So Northstar has been around for about 10 years. We have organizations that subscribe to us in all 50 states and 7 countries. One thing I do want to make sure you know is that Northstar is currently only available in English. We get requests all the time to be available in other languages, translated into other languages. And of course, this is something that we want to do. In order to make it happen, there's quite a bit of underlying coding that has to happen on Northstar that for a nonprofit is kind of expensive. So, but we are committed to doing this. So we've been kind of crowdsourcing, honestly, the funding, and we have about a little bit over half of it secured. And so we've been able to hire a dedicated developer to work on this project. And we are moving forward with, we feel that with the funds we've already secured, we can start the process. So our hope is that by the end of summer, we will have some of the beginning assessments, which I'll show you, available in Spanish. And then once this whole project is done, changing all the coding, it will, and Spanish is the first language we'll translate everything into, then it's much quicker and cheaper for us to translate into other languages. So we're excited about this prospect of making it available to many people who don't speak English. Northstar is also 100% compatible with desktops, laptops, and Chromebooks. It does work with some mobile devices, with cell phones and tablets. There are some questions, though, that you can't do on those devices, like drag and drop questions. And we know that many people, all they have is a mobile device. So we did get a grant and have started changing the coding for that to make Northstar mobile compatible. And that will be, again, kind of rolled out piece by piece over the next year to year and a half. So at the moment, you can use it with those devices. There's just a few questions that people just can't do. So Northstar was started during the last Great Recession at the request of our local library here in St. Paul. And they were seeing a lot of people, just a lot of displaced workers coming into the library looking for digital literacy education so that they could, look more attractive to prospective employers. And the library was all set to do this. They had a computer lab, they had staffing, but what they were finding was that in any given class, they had people with such a wide range of digital literacy skills that they weren't really effectively teaching anybody. So they came to us and they said, is there a way that you can create some basic digital literacy standards? And we have experts on staff. We're connected, with that nationwide network. And so we thought, this sounds like a good fit for us at Literacy Minnesota. So those experts got together. They started looking at what, they did focus groups. They did a search of the landscape, and they started thinking about what topics should be included in basic digital literacy. And once they developed those topics like email and internet searching, once they developed those topics, they then created standards for each topic. And the standards really are the skills that you need to be proficient in the topic area. So they created the standards, and then once they created the standards, they could create the assessments. So the standards are saying these are the skills you need, and the assessments then test to see if you have those skills or not. Because we work with adults in literacy, we wanted to make this as accessible to the population we serve as we could. And we felt that we could maintain the integrity of the digital literacy instruction and assessment and still have everything written at a grade 4 English reading level. So that's about an intermediate English language learner level. We also decided to make it web-based, and that way you don't need any special app or software. As long as someone has a device and an internet connection, you can access Northstar from anywhere in the world. We initially thought it would just be used by the St. Paul Public Library, and we were kind of blown away when it so quickly gathered national attention. And that was partly because of those experts talking about it and writing about it, partly because it's on the web and people can find it, but mostly because there's still nothing out there at this lower digital literacy level and lower English reading level. So initially, Northstar was free, and as I mentioned, there's a free version. When we saw the need out there, we wanted to make sure that we maintained Northstar. And as you know, the digital literacy landscape is always changing. So in order to maintain it, we really needed to have dedicated staff. So to pay for that, we also have created a subscription model, but which we, again, keep the prices low because we know that most organizations that are using Northstar are nonprofits as well. So we keep it low just to cover those maintenance costs. And then if we ever are going to add new features to Northstar, we get additional funding. I want to make it clear that no individual is ever even allowed to pay for Northstar. The subscriptions are only purchased for organizations like libraries, workforce centers, adult education, community colleges, I think, businesses, four-year colleges. Those types of organizations purchase Northstar and then make it available to their learners for free. And then, of course, the free version is free for everybody. So I talked about how the assessments came to be. And because we serve so many different types of organizations, I guess that speaks to the flexibility of Northstar. But also, they all have varying capacities and capabilities. And so after several years of subscribers using the assessments, they came to us and said, this is great. Now we know what people know and what they need to learn. But we don't have staff time or knowledge to develop digital literacy curriculum. Northstar, can you do that? And Literacy Minnesota has a long history of creating a curriculum for adults in literacy. And so we felt this was right in our wheelhouse. So we started creating this instructor-led curriculum. But some organizations, some subscribers, they have, maybe 2 computers and a half-time person helping, and they really didn't have space or staff for classes, which you might get in a traditional instructor-led curriculum, being used in. So we then started developing something that could be, that's much more learner-directed, that they can do on their own, pretty much, maybe with a little bit of guidance on their own time and without a lot of instructor guidance. With that came the learner management system to allow the learners to track their progress and to choose what they wanted to work on. And then, of course, there's multiple reports that staff has access to see how learners are doing individually, as well as how people are doing at your organization overall. So let's look at the assessments. And these assessments, again, are free to everybody. The free version, the subscription version, all the same. The main difference is that if you take an assessment on the free version, there's no record of it. We don't keep that. So unless you write down your score, there's no record. Whereas in the subscription version, those records are kept for your organization. So you can see that we have 14 assessments here. No one person has to take all 14. It really depends on what their goals are and what your organizational goals are. So, it could be that someone is just looking to increase their knowledge in Excel, and they just want to take the Excel assessment to see what they know and what they need to learn. And that would be totally legit. Having said that, many organizations will give the first 3 assessments, the basic computer, the internet basics, and the using email to all those they encounter, because without being able to pass those 3, it's pretty difficult to do much in digital literacy. So, that's why they're under the essential computer skills along with some of the operating systems. You can see these are broken out into 3 groups, mainly for ease of talking about them. So we have those essential computer skills. The essential software you can see is somewhat Microsoft heavy. And that's because when Northstar was first developed, that was mostly being what was being used. Now Google's come and taken a much bigger share of the market. So about a year ago, we introduced Google Docs. And then the plan is that we would add Google Drive, Google Sheets, and Google Slides as we get the funding to do so. Using technology in daily life, these are a little more advanced skills, and some of them are fairly apparent, like social media. Information literacy is that idea not of how to search, but how to search well, so that you're using search terms to get you relevant hits, and that you're discerning what sites are reliable and what sites are not, kind of adding that critical thinking piece in there a little bit. The supporting K-12 distance learning, this was created for the pandemic, for parents who are helping their kids do distance learning. And some parents may still be doing that. Is also, though, helpful for adults. Many community college programs, many kind of higher level training programs do use distance learning platforms. So this is helpful for adults who are planning to go into those educational pursuits, to prepare them so that they can be more successful in that institution. Career search skills is what it sounds like. And then your digital footprint is that idea that you, whatever you do online, you're leaving traces behind. You want to be aware of that. You want to be aware of that and aware of what you're leaving behind, and make sure that is what you want others to be able to see. I'm very excited because right now the team is working on a telehealth assessment, and I've been talking to people in the healthcare world for the last probably year and a half, and learning from them what's coming, where they're seeing patients have difficulty. And telehealth is not going away. It's very equitable for people who don't have childcare or don't have transportation, or who live far from their doctor. But if people don't have the digital skills to access it, then it's creating more of a divide. So at Northstar, we felt that this was important to help people learn these skills. So that will be coming out at the end of April this year. So the assessments, when you give them, you can give them, they can be taken unproctored, or if you have the subscription version, they can be proctored. And proctoring just means that you would have someone on staff who's verifying that the person is who they say they are by, like checking their ID, and who is watching someone take the test, so to be sure they're not using notes or having someone help them, or looking at their phone. Very easy to proctor. But and we'll talk about this more later. But regardless of whether or not any assessment is proctored, and you decide on a case-by-case basis, when someone finishes the assessment, they will get this results page. And so you can see on here that it tells you what your score is, and Northstar says you have to have 85% or higher to pass. Over here in the green, these are the standards that this person has passed successfully. And then in the gray, these are the standards that they have not. So you can see next to, here's the globe with the 5, and that's telling you what standard 5 is for internet basics here. If someone wanted to go, right from here to practicing the skills, they could go to the barbell where it says practice, and it would take them directly to that self-directed online learning. So they pass the assessment. They don't really need to go through the entire module. This just takes them to that particular piece that they haven't yet mastered. So it's very individualized. It helps save people time and energy by focusing on the skills they still have to learn. Now, if this was that would be in the subscription version. In the free version, they can use a self-directed online learning. It just won't go right from here to that. There's kind of they'd have to back out and go to a new place, and I can show you that. So I said you have to have 85% or higher to pass. If someone takes this assessment unproctored and they pass, they are eligible to get a digital badge. And a digital badge is like a micro credential. So, and some people use these and some people don't, but it's basically a little icon that says you passed this assessment. And you can use it on LinkedIn or on your resume, however you want to use it. If someone has, if the assessment has been proctored and someone passes, they'd get a different digital badge kind of saying that this was an official assessment, proctored assessment. And they could also get a certificate that you would either print out for them or email to them if they knew how to use email. So when we created the certificates, we did it because we wanted to show employers, people show employers what they knew. And I hear from all across the country that people are getting jobs because they have these certificates, because it's an objective way to show someone your skills. Rather than you saying, I'm really great at Word, you can say, I've passed this assessment on Word, and here's the proof. It's especially helpful to people who have been out of the workforce for a long time, like through incarceration or through taking care of family members. It's also helpful for people who this may be their first job or their first job in this country, and for people who are moving from more of a physical labor job to a desk labor job. And although the certificates have been really important to help people get jobs, what we found was even more important, which we didn't really think of at first, was how much confidence getting these certificates gives people. I've had people who'll start crying. I've had people give me high fives. One lady or one man just recently got a new apartment, and he asked his instructor to print out all the certificates so he could frame them and put them up on his walls. And then a woman, she put her certificate on her refrigerator. I think it was Internet Basics, so she could prove to her teenagers that she knew what she was doing. So it's really great and powerful for people. If you're thinking about someone who doesn't know how to use a computer, let's say they don't know how to turn it on or use a mouse or use email. Computers are very scary. They're afraid of breaking them. They're afraid of wiping out all the information. So having this objective piece of paper that says they know what they're doing means a lot. And it shows, and it also helps them persist in other educational and career-related goals, because Northstar is a fairly quick win. You can see progress fairly quickly. In fact, I was just talking to someone yesterday who said that she was working with a class, and they really only had 2 hours of instruction on Northstar, and they would still see progress in those 2 hours in terms of how well they did on the assessments. So people can make progress quickly, and that allows them to see that they have the agency, that if they put the time and effort into it, they see results. And so that helps them persist in other longer term goals that they may have. So here's an example of one of our students who ended up passing all of the Northstar assessments. And you can see he's holding several of them in his hand here. You can print out one that lists everything, every assessment someone's passed, but most of the time learners want a separate certificate for each assessment they passed. Again, it's that point of pride. So this learner is someone that we kind of typically see at our organization, in that he had been an auto mechanic for his whole career and just got to a point where he physically just couldn't do the job anymore, but wanted to stay in the industry and work at an auto supply store. However, he had pretty low digital literacy skills, so he wasn't eligible for that job. So he came to us, ended up passing all the assessments, and then got the job he wanted at Napa Auto Parts. So it was this great win for him, and really fun for us to kind of be along for the ride. So how do organizations use the assessments? Typically, you'll give an assessment kind of as a pre-assessment to see what someone already knows and where there's an area for instruction. You'll provide that instruction, and then you'll give the post-assessment proctored so that if someone does pass, they can earn that certificate. Now, if you are on the free version, you can still do the pre-assessment and then provide the instructional needs however you want to. And then you would test again to see if someone passed. They'd get that digital badge that said it was unproctored, but they would still see the increase in their scores. So that's helpful. Other organizations, often organizations will use Northstar to prepare their own staff. So many people feel uncomfortable teaching digital literacy. Maybe they've never taught it before. Maybe they're not even sure of their own skills. So this lets people see where they're at and where their gaps are to prepare them for teaching digital literacy. Many organizations too will get a lot of businesses who purchase Northstar to upskill their employees. So basically professional development. I would highly, highly encourage all of you to take one of the Northstar assessments. Probably will take you 5 to 10 minutes. They're not long. I encourage you to take them so you can see what they're like, what the experience is like, what they cover. But also, I have yet to meet anyone who has passed all 14 assessments with 100% the first time. Even people in IT have not. So it just goes to show that digital literacy is lifelong learning. And most of us who feel, fairly digitally literate, a lot of us have taught ourselves our skills. So we may have gaps of things that we never had to learn, or there might be more efficient ways of doing things that we just don't know. So, challenge yourself to take one of the assessments, see what it's like, and see how you do. And I'll show you at the end how to find those assessments. If you do decide to have the subscription model, or if you have it, you can do remote proctoring. Initially proctoring was in person, but with the pandemic, everything went remote. So at Northstar, we made it very easy for you to do remote proctoring. Are there any questions? And feel free to interrupt me at any time. I am here for you, so I would like to be able to answer your questions. And you can either unmute and ask it, or you can put it in the chat. At any time, you can do that. But I'm going to pause here and ask, are there any questions about the assessments at this moment?
Can we just unmute and ask, or did you want it in the chat?
No, you can unmute, that's fine.
Okay, so I had a question. You were talking about proctoring the assessment, and I wasn't quite sure why there would be a need for that. In particular, I can't see why I would have a need for that, because if I were giving the assessment, it would just be informally and to find out where my students are at so that I could, figure out what direction they needed to go in. So maybe you can shed some more light on that. And then the other question is, does the free version offer all of the same things that the subscription does? And I understand the subscription part is where you would need to have that in order to do the proctored exams. But other than that, are there going to be any differences?
Yeah, so those are two really great questions. And I definitely love the way that, you're thinking about offering the assessments first to see where you're going to focus your instruction. That's definitely a best practice. And I wouldn't proctor those, initial assessments. The reason you may want to proctor is that once someone has the instruction and they look like they might pass, if that assessment is proctored and they pass, then that's when they can get the certificate. So they can't get the certificate unless it's been proctored. And the reason for that is simply so that Northstar can keep its, our test viability, because we otherwise would have no way of knowing if someone was coming in and taking a test for somebody else. So that would be the reason to proctor if you want to issue those certificates. If that's not important to you or your learners, I will say learners do find it, like I said, very confidence building to have that piece of paper. But that's why you would proctor. And then as far as the free version versus the subscription version, proctoring is one difference, but there are several other differences. And at the end, I'll show you kind of a comparison table so you can sort of clearly see. I'll talk about it as we go through it, but briefly, in the free version, you have access to all 14 assessments. They're all the same that is in the subscription version. You can't keep a record of them because you don't have an organization to tie it to, and you can't proctor. The instructor-led curriculum is only available in the subscription version. And then the self-directed online learning, some of it's available in the free version, but not all. And I'll go over that more. And then, of course, there's no reports available in the free version. So those are the main difference. And then, keep asking me that because I know it's kind of confusing. So we'll look at it at the end, but as it comes up, if you are unsure, feel free to ask. And Tina asked, what training is required to become a proctor? That's a good question too. So to be a proctor, the training is about, you watch maybe a 20-minute video and then take a quiz at the end. And then when you pass, you're assigned a proctor code that's unique to you. And that's it to become a proctor. So it's really going through the steps of, how do you verify someone's ID? How do you read a testing code of conduct, which is basically saying they're not going to cheat. You watch them take the test. It's fairly easy as far as proctoring goes. Great questions. Any other questions before we go on? One thing I want to say is with the subscription version, you will get everything in here. And you can decide how you're going to implement it. I'm kind of telling you some ways, but of course it really depends on your organization, how you would do things and what you would use and how you'd use them. All right, so let's talk about the instructor-led curricula. So this is something that's only in the subscription version. I think the only one that's available in the free version is the supporting K-12 distance learning. So if you want to see what, an example of what the curriculum looks like, there is one there and you can use that in the free version. So our intention at Northstar is that for every assessment topic we would have a curricula to go with it. And we currently have 13 of the 14 completed. The team is now working on your digital footprint, and that should be done sometime this spring. So the curriculum, the instructor-led curriculum, is, as everything, is aligned with those Northstar standards. And you can see the standards. They are on the free website, on our website. You can see those for free. So many times people with the free version, what they'll do is they'll look at the standards and then develop their own curriculum around those standards of what should be taught. If they aren't subscribing and using the Northstar curriculum. But the Northstar instructor curriculum, we have made it really easy to use. So all of the lessons, look the same, they flow the same. You don't have to be a certified teacher to be able to use it. I'll show you this, but we kind of give you the words to say and the tasks to do. They're also very learner-centered, so created for adults. There's a lot of practice in there. And I had the pleasure of teaching an internet basics class in person. And there was so much repetition, I thought people are going to get bored, but they actually really loved it because digital literacy is very hard to learn through lecture. You actually have to get in there and do it. And the more people do it, the more confident they feel. And I would say that in the people that were in the class I led were almost everyone came up to me and said, this is something I've always wanted to learn and was too embarrassed to ever ask anyone. So they're very, very excited to be learning the material. I even had one woman who, we're in Minnesota. I was teaching in a public housing unit. So it was with people who didn't have a lot of extra cash. But for the holidays, she was able to go down to Florida and visit family. And she flew back on a 2 a.m. flight, and our class was in the evening. And so I was, thanking her for coming to the class, saying she must be tired. And she said, well, I could have come back the next day during the afternoon for half the price, but I just didn't want to miss this class. So it kind of spoke to how important this material was for her. The other great thing about Northstar is that the lessons are very independent. So, which means you can pull from whatever you learn. You don't have to do the entire unit if you don't need to. You can pull the lessons that are important to whatever you're trying to teach. So let's say you're doing a unit on safety, and you want to pull the internet safety from the internet basics unit and the phishing scam piece from the email unit. You can easily do that. So the curriculum has about 8 lesson plans on average per unit topic. And the curriculum developers felt it would take about 2 hours to complete each lesson plan. So if you did do the entire thing, it would be, like 15, 16 hours. When I taught the class, it was to a smaller class. It was in person, intermediate English language learners. I would say it only took an hour and a half. So it kind of depends on some of the logistics of the people who are in your class. There also is available to you if you want to use it. And again, everything, of course, is optional. A final unit project that's aligned with these college and career readiness standards that are used in adult education, meaning that it's a little bit more academic. So you'll take the skills learned in that unit, and then the learners will have to read several paragraphs very thoroughly and kind of do close reading, talk about vocabulary, and then they'll do a project combining what they read with the skills they've learned. Again, that's totally optional depending on your focus. You can easily use the curriculum for one-on-one tutoring, and many organizations do. In fact, our own organization has volunteer tutors that use the lessons. So there's a lot of great worksheets in there that tutors can work on with their learners, and examples and things that they can do together. We've also made it really easy to do remotely. And I do this all the time, demonstrating it to instructors. And it's really fun. The curriculum is really fun to teach remotely and seems to be engaging, even to the instructors I'm working with. So the curriculum developers are all people who have taught adults in their past. And so they incorporated best practices for adult learning in writing this curriculum. And so they all include a warm-up that, we know adults come with a lot of wisdom. So this is getting at what people already know, getting them kind of thinking about the topic, and then that helps marry that knowledge to what they're going to learn. We go through then a kind of an objective piece that's in student-friendly language, because adults like to know what they're going to learn and how it's relevant to them. And I will say that when I did this, I found that this really got people engaged. Just talking about the objectives really got people engaged in the lesson. Then there's a model and explain piece where the instructor is modeling the skill and explaining what they're doing. Then as a class, you do it together. So this allows you as the instructor to make sure that everyone's kind of tracking and following along. You can have people pair up and do a task, but ultimately they have their own task to perform. Then you'd come together as a group, review the answers and see that you'd met those objectives. And then of course there's digital literacy, vocabulary work kind of infused throughout the whole lesson. So this is what the first page of all lesson plans look like. And you can see here in the left-hand corner, these are the digital literacy standards that are in this lesson. So every unit has what's called the scope and sequence that lets you see all the standards that are being taught and what lessons you can find which standards in. So again, if you're just looking to teach a couple of standards, you can easily find where they're located in the lessons. Over here on the right, these are the vocabulary, the digital literacy vocabulary words that the students will be learning. The middle, this is really the objectives written in instructor language, along with any teaching tips that the instructor would need to know to help make this class smoother. And then below, here's the teacher prep guide that's showing you basically what handouts to print out. And if you're doing this remotely, you can click on those blue links and it would show that handout on your screen. So as we kind of delve into the curriculum, this is what that warm-up looks like. So again, getting people to start talking about what they already know, talking about the topic. This then allows the instructor to go back, at some point and say, remember when we talked about keeping your social security number safe or whatever it would be. Then they can tie in, that connection. Here's that we will learn part with the objectives. And like I said, when I first taught this, I thought, well, I'll just write these on the board and we'll be done with them in a minute. The people I was working with, they loved this. They wanted to write this all down in their notebook. They wanted to, they were English language learners, so they wanted to practice saying it. They wanted to talk about what all the words meant. So it got everyone really engaged and really kind of excited for the lesson. Here's that model and explain piece I was mentioning to you. So this, you can see that it tells you as an instructor, it gives you the words to say and the tasks to do. So, this helps maintain, consistency across your organization. Also, many of us who feel digitally literate know how to do things, but we may not know the proper terminology. So it helps, keep us consistent in what we're calling things so that we're not confusing to new learners to digital literacy. And also it's, if you're someone who has been using computers for a long time, it's hard to remember what it was like to not know how to turn on a computer or not know how to use a mouse or search on the internet. And so this helps give us the language to talk to people who are at that point and who haven't learned those skills yet. So for example, if I was talking to someone who had never searched on the internet before, and if I told them to click a link, it's not going to mean anything to them, right? But it's something I do every day. So this puts us more in that gives us that way to talk about these skills so they can best be understood by someone who has not yet learned them. And then here's an example of one of the handouts that goes over some situations for learners to think about. And what I mostly want to point out here is that you can see that the first names in this handout come from a variety of cultures. And so in everything Northstar does, in the pictures and the videos and the handouts, we do incorporate people from other cultures in the hopes that learners feel they can identify with the people in Northstar. Are there any questions about the instructor-led curriculum before we go on? Okay. Oops. So now I want to talk to you about the self-directed online learning, often called the practice lessons. We currently have, well, again, the plan would be to have all 14. We currently have 6. We started developing these in March of 2020. And the 6 that we have here are listed. Of these 6, 4 are available in the free version. So the 4 that are available of the 6 are basic computer, using email, Word, and career search. And initially we had thought we would make them only available in the subscription, but because of the pandemic, we felt it was just the right thing to do to make them available to a large group of people, especially those who had lost jobs, to give them some skills in helping their job search. So that's one difference. The other difference is that one any one module takes about 90 minutes to go through. If you're in the subscription version, you can do 10 minutes, save your progress, come back another day. If you're on the free version, you can't save your progress. So you'd have to, have time to go through the whole thing in one go. So 90 minutes. But otherwise, they are the same content. So, so you can see we have 6 done. The team is now working on Excel, and that will be done sometime this spring. And then the next one will be social media. I guess the other thing I want to say is that if you do have the subscription version, as we add in new features or new content, the subscription is an annual subscription. You don't have to opt into anything new. It's just there for you. You don't have to like say, oh, yes, I want this. It will be there for you in your admin portal. There will be no extra fee. You'll be given an email from Northstar telling you what's there, what's new, and given any links to training material that you might need. So that's how the subscription works. So now I want to show you, I think it's easiest to show you what the self-directed online learning looks like rather than describe it. So I am going to show you an example. And what you should see is a picture of a laptop, and there'll be some words above it. And you should hear a voice reading those words. Sometimes, depending on your own computer configuration, you don't, but she is reading the words that are on the screen. And I just won't talk until she's done because it's hard for me to compete with her. So let's take a look at this. Okay.
If you look closely at the outside of a computer, you will see buttons and many small holes. These holes are usually called ports. Each port has a specific shape for different uses and different types of plugs.
So you can hear that she reads very slowly and clearly. The learner can speed up the sound, they can slow it down, they can repeat it as many times as they'd like, they can turn it off. And there's also closed captioning. So we've tried to make it ADA compliant and also just accessible to a variety of different learning types. So the Northstar self-directed online learning is set up where you'll have this instructional piece. But then, as I mentioned, we at Northstar feel that you really can't learn digital literacy without practicing it. So I'm going to click on the next button here and show you an example of the practice piece.
Here is a flash drive that you can plug into a computer. Click on the port that matches it.
So then if the learner clicks here, they'll be told, yes, that is a USB port. If they had clicked on the headphone jack, it would say, no, this is a headphone jack. Look for something that matches this shape. And the way Northstar Online Learning is set up is you'll have several of these instructional pieces, practice piece, instructional piece, practice piece, for a few of the standards. And then at the end of that section, there'll be a quiz. And the quiz will say you're ready to go on to the module or go back and review what you just saw. And there'll be probably 3 or 4 sections in an entire module. And at the very end of the module, there'll be another quiz that will say you're ready to take the assessment again or go back and review X, Y, and Z. So again, it's very tailored to each individual and what their learning needs are. And so to facilitate that in the subscription version, then learners have access to their own dashboard so that they can see what they've done and where they are. So what that learner dashboard looks like is this. So you can see that all of the assessments are here, or all of the assessment topics, I should say, are here. And you can take an assessment from this page. Because this is only available in the subscription, it would then tie directly to your organization. So you would have that information in your reports. As we talked about, there's only 6 current modules available. And the way that learners can tell which ones are available is that you can see here these top 3 all have the word lessons next to take an assessment. But if I go down to Mac OS, you can see it just has the word details. And then here in bold, it says lessons are not yet developed. If someone had clicked on the details button, it would say there are no practice lessons available. So that's, how the learners can discern which ones have the lessons attached to them currently. So if we look at the internet basics here in purple in the middle, this outer ring is showing the learner how well they did on the assessment. So if you remember that results page, it was 85.8%. This is showing that graphically. The inner ring, this lavender ring, is showing them how much of the self-directed online learning practice they've finished. So in this case, it's been about 50%. So if you're an instructor, you can, give homework in this way. So you could say, well, I'd like you to finish 50% of the basic computer skills by the time we meet next. Or it might give students a way to set their own goals. If they go into the lessons, this is where they're going to find the self-directed online learning. They can either start practice here at the top, and that will go through the entire module. Or if they come down to these tabs, if they go to the standards tab, this shows them which of the standards they missed when they took that pre-assessment. And then over here on the right, this would show them if they've done the practice or not. So if they hadn't, it would look like the barbell. They can always go in and practice something again. There's no limit. As long as your organization has a subscription, the learner can practice as much as they want. Also on this tab, you can see that I mentioned those sections in the self-directed online learning. So those sections are in the capital letters here. But then everything underneath them, you can click on and it will take you to that part in the self-directed online learning. So let's say someone passed this. This is internet basics. Let's say they passed this assessment, and then in 6 months, they were going to apply for a job and the application was online. And they had kind of forgotten how to fill out the online form. They could come back here, go to fill out an online form, just review that section, and then remind themselves of how to do it. Also really helpful for instructors to say, I'd like you to review how to scroll up and down a page. Or, and you can use this, instructors can use this either alone or in conjunction with the instructor-led curriculum. So there's a variety of different ways that you can use the educational resources. As an instructor, you would have access to your learners' records. And so what you see as an instructor or staff would be this. So here under the modules, these are the assessment topics. And if you hover over the icon, it will tell you, what it is. Over here under best score, this is showing you the best score they got on the assessment and tells you how many times they've tried. And it's nice because it's color coded. So if it's in green, they've passed. If it's in yellow, they haven't. Under the practice lessons, this is showing you what percentage of the practice lessons someone has completed. Then over here, it tells you if they've earned a badge, and here's where you'd print out the certificate. In Northstar, whenever you see the eye with the circle, if you click on that, you'll get more information. So here you can see what standards they've missed, and then if they've done the practice for them or not. And if you go down to the bottom of the page, you can see, when they took the assessment, if it was proctored, who proctored it. And again, you can click on this eye and scroll down all the way to the bottom, and you can see what questions they missed. So if this person is having a hard time passing this assessment and you're not really sure why, you can come down here and see, are there any themes of topics they're just not understanding? Or is it the way the question's written? Or like maybe they don't understand some of the vocabulary? Or is it that the question's asking for 3 answers and they're only giving 1? Now, of course, I don't expect you to memorize what question 21 in Internet Basics is. So if you click on that number, it will then bring up the actual question. Now, I would never say to teach to the test. This is just a way for you to kind of see what might be tripping up this learner, and where you can provide some further instruction. The other nice thing about the self-directed online learning is that we do at Northstar track the time on task. So if someone is, and it separates it out, if someone's using this, at your program, and you're probably already tracking that information, how many hours, minutes they're using it, versus how much time they might be using it at home or away from your organization. So, and they could do it at home, at a friend's house, at the library, at over work break, many people do. So this just lets you see when your learners are using it and how much they're using it, which might be, for some organizations, that's important for just funding. And for some, it's helpful to know where it's being used and how it's being used. Any questions about the self-directed online learning before we go on? Okay. So I mentioned that in order to have this dashboard, we have created this learner management system. And to add learners is very easy. You can either have staff add them, or you can allow them to self-sign up, keeping in mind that some of Northstar is directed at people who don't yet have these skills. So there will be some people who would need help signing up for Northstar that just don't have the skills to do it on their own. But the only information you need to add someone to the Northstar Learner Management System is someone's first name, their last name, and their email address. Now, of course, if they have low digital literacy skills, they may not have an email address or know how to use email, and that's okay. You can create an email address for them. It doesn't have to be something they ever access. The email address just is a unique identifier to that learner, and it's something they would enter to get into the system, but they don't have to actually access email. You can also add learners in bulk. So if you're starting a class or if you have a cohort, you can create a spreadsheet that would have, one column first name, one column last names, one column email addresses, and then you can bulk upload that, and all those learner accounts are created at one time. We also have a feature that allows you to tag learner accounts. And the reason that this is important is because all of Northstar, the reports, the default is that it would show you, the bigger picture reports would show you everyone in your learner management system. Now, sometimes you might want to just see those people in a specific class, or taught by a specific instructor, or maybe even in a specific zip code. Whatever those sub-reports would be, whatever sub-reports would be useful to you, you can create tags and tag those learners. We at Northstar don't create the tags for you. It's something that you use whatever is most useful to your organization. And the only thing we don't let you do is add personally identifiable information. So you can add social security numbers or driver's license numbers or birth dates. But other than that, you can tag with whatever is most useful to your organization. So I'm going to show you some of these kind of higher level reports and what they look like and kind of the information you can glean from them. So the summary reports here in the circle graph, this is showing you how many assessments of each type have been given. And if I hover over a piece of the pie, it shows that this site, over 2,000 basic computer skills assessments were given. Now, this is useful to you, one, just to prove how you're using Northstar to your funders. Secondly, it can be really helpful if you're allowing people to take, whatever assessments they want. like this site does, you could see that a lot of people are electing to take Internet Basics, not that many Mac OS. So then maybe you say, well, so many people are interested in Internet Basics, perhaps we should have an instructor-led class on that. Whereas Mac OS, not that many are interested. Maybe we, have those people work with tutors or, more on their own. If we go down to the bar graph, this is showing the percentage of assessments passed by type of assessment. So you can see email, quite a few people are passing email, the 68%. Google Docs, not quite as much, 25%. So maybe you then say, well, email seems like a topic that's easy for our group of learners to learn. So if someone doesn't pass the email assessment, maybe we have them start out with the self-directed online learning, and they'll probably then be able to pick up the information there. Whereas Google Docs seems like it's a little more difficult. It might need some more instructor time. So maybe we have a class on for Google Docs, for example. If you go up to the detailed reports, this tells you, some of that same information. And then if you click on view reports and wait for a little bit, it gives you that same information, but then here it tells you how long your particular group of learners is taking to take this assessment. And that can be very useful in terms of time management if you are proctoring. I would say 15 to 20 minutes is about average to take an assessment for someone who has lower digital literacy. For people who have, feel fairly confident in their digital literacy, it's probably 5-10 minutes. There is no time limit on the assessments. I have worked with learners who've taken, I'd say the longest I've seen is about 35 minutes. And that was more because they were either low digital literacy or lower, English reading level. If you scroll down, you'll see here in aggregate what questions this group is having difficulty with. So you can see like question 13, a lot of people are missing that. And if I scroll down further, that's also indicated by these brown triangles. So I see question 13 is about hyperlinks. And if I click on that, I can see that people are having trouble differentiating between which mouse pointer does what. So then maybe in my instruction, I make it very clear about the functions of each of those mouse pointers. Again, not teaching to the test, but just using it to inform where I spend my instructional time and energy. So Northstar, the way, if you were to get this subscription, the way it's kind of set up is that each site would have 2 to 3 Northstar administrators from your own staff. And we say at least 2 in case someone gets sick or, leaves the organization, then someone else knows what's going on. And those administrators have access to everything in the Northstar admin portal. And their main function, or what differentiates them from other people, is that they can add and delete staff or volunteers in the admin portal. So they're the only ones who can do that. They also are the only ones who can set some organization-wide parameters for Northstar. So for example, if you want students to be able to sign up themselves for the learner management system, that would be something that the administrator would set in the parameters. So in Northstar, there's really 4 roles. One is this Northstar administrator. Second would be what we call staff. So that would be anyone who wants to get into the Northstar admin portal to run reports or add new learners or access the curriculum and the self-directed online learning. Those would all be staff. And you can have as many staff, you can have every single person on staff be in the Northstar admin portal if you want to. The third category in Northstar is that of proctors. And as we discussed, in order to be a proctor, you'd go through a 20-minute video and then a little quiz, and you'd get your proctor code. So proctors have access to everything staff does. They also can do proctoring. And again, you could have every single staff person be a proctor if you wanted to. And then the fourth category are the learners. And there, you can have as many learners in your, you can serve as many learners as are in your state if you want to. We don't put a limit on that. There's no seat limit to learners. As many people as you want to help, we are very happy that you are. We also make available to you free advertising on our Northstar homepage. So on our webpage, if a learner were to come to our webpage and put in their zip code, they can see all the organizations near them that offer Northstar services. And you are able to put, on there what you offer. If you can even get down to the granularities of if you have classes, when they are, what days, what times, how to sign up, that kind of thing. Organizations who use the free version of Northstar will often also use this. So let's say you're using the free version, you're giving assessments, and you are maybe providing your own, using your own curriculum to provide instruction, or maybe you're using those free versions of the self-directed online learning, and you get someone who's ready to take the assessment and wants the certificate for whatever reason. You can then send them to one of the subscribing organizations that offer Northstar proctoring to get the certificate. And sometimes organizations will want that certificate to, like I said, different training programs will want proof that you've passed an assessment to get into the training program. So you can partner with organizations in your area as well if you want to use a free version and aren't able to do the proctoring or teach the classes. We also have online help desk. So if something's not working in Northstar, you can contact us. We do have a lot of resources about how to use Northstar. We are an educational institution, so we believe in providing a lot of resources. But if you can't figure out how to do something, you can always contact us and we'll help you. And if you see something in Northstar that you feel could be better, we are a small team, probably less than 5, full-time equivalent people. But we honestly have a spreadsheet where we keep every suggestion on the spreadsheet. And then the more times we hear, the same suggestion, the higher up it goes. And as we get toward the top, suggestions, we then go out and find funding and resources to make those changes. So a lot of what you see in Northstar really has come about from what our subscribers have been asking for, which I think is kind of cool, just because it's, meeting your needs where you're at working with learners. So again, to look at the difference between the free versus the subscription, and then I'll show you where to find all the free stuff too. So all 14 assessments are available for free, as well as in the subscription. In the free version, then there's no record of achievement. So unless you take a screenshot or write it down, you wouldn't have a record of your score. In the subscription model, you would get, if someone passed, you would get their certificates and the badges. You can do proctoring both remote and in person. And then there's that individual learner management system that it's tied to give you reports on the individual's progress. The curriculum in the free version, we do link to external, so not made by Northstar, but free websites made by other organizations that we feel match our standards or teach to our standards. So you can use those, and I'll show you how to find those. And we do have that one curriculum, which is the K-12 distance learning, that's available for free. And then in this, this needs to be updated. Oh no, this is right, sorry. In the subscription version, we do have the 13 curriculum modules available. There are teaching guides to teach in person and remotely, and then those unit projects I was mentioning. For the Northstar online learning, in the free version, there are the 4 modules, but you can't save your progress in any lesson. And in the subscription version, there are the 6 modules, and any subsequent modules we create will be only in the subscription version. And then it's again tied to that learner management system, and you can save your progress, and people have access to their dashboards. And this is kind of hard to see, but no reports available in the free version. In the subscription version, you have those site statistics, you can do the tagging, and you can see the learner progress. So before I kind of show you where everything is on our website, the free version, are there any questions before we do that? I do see a question in the chat. Oh, this is a good question. I like this question from Amy. In the assessments, if a student doesn't know the answer, should the student guess or leave it blank so that the teacher knows that it's a skill that should be reviewed with the student? So that's a very good question. And actually in the assessment itself, there is a button that says, I don't know. And so I would, when working with students, I would encourage them that if they really don't know, to click on that. They can always, what's nice too about the assessments, they can always go back and change their answer if, they remember, or if sometimes things in the assessments kind of spur our understanding of how maybe to answer that question that we saw previously. So but yeah, to your point, rather than just trying to blindly guess and maybe randomly getting it right, much better to just say, I don't know, and then that would be something that instructor would work on them with. Assessments can be, the idea of taking an assessment can kind of be scary to some people. So when talking about the Northstar assessments, especially, the pre-assessment, I would always encourage you to position it, if it's true that this is not something where you're going to be judged on your knowledge. I'm not trying to punish you. This is a way for us to see what you already know, so we can focus on those skills that you don't yet have. And it's just going to help you save you time and energy in terms of our time together. So that's usually how I position it, and kind of going along with what you're saying, Amy. So thank you for bringing that up. Any other questions that you have, or even thoughts about how you might implement this, or concerns that you have?
Hi, I was wondering if you could say a little bit more about the relationship between the teacher-led lessons and the online lessons. Are they really strongly connected, or do they work somewhat independently of each other?
So that's a really good question. So they both are built around those standards. So they would both be teaching the same skills. I would say the instructor-led curricula, goes more in depth and probably offers more practice opportunity. You can use them in conjunction with one another, though. They're covering this, again, those same standards. So sometimes organizations will just use one or the other, depending on really how the organization's set up and what instructor time they have, and things like that. But I have worked with organizations who have used them in conjunction with one another. So sometimes the way that looks is you'll give a pre-assessment to a class. Let's say you've got, 12 people in your class, and the majority of the class, maybe 10 of those people, know standards 1 through 6 in this topic. And then there's maybe 2 people who really don't know anything. Sometimes what instructors will do is they'll have those 2 people work on the self-directed online learning to kind of catch them up on some of the skills so that they can better participate with the class. Also, sometimes instructors will, at the beginning of a class, the first 5-10 minutes, say, I want you all to review, X in your self-directed online learning before we continue on with the lesson. They'll often give it as homework. So maybe they'll go over it in class, over the classroom instruction, and then say, now I want you to do these things in between the time that we meet. Sometimes, so I guess I didn't say this, but so Northstar is written at this intermediate English language learner level, kind of grade 4 reading level. That's not to say you can't use it with people who read at a lower English level. Many organizations do. And sometimes what those organizations will do is they will take the self-directed online learning, those practice lessons, but do it as a class together. So they'll maybe go through one screen at a time, and really have to kind of cover the surrounding vocabulary, maybe 1 or 2 screens at a time as a class. And then they'll have their class go in individually and work on that same page on their own. So they're kind of covering what the class already did. So that sometimes is also a good way for people to practice the skills. So those are kind of different ways you can use them in conjunction, but it really depends, I think, on just how your organization is set up and what you have in terms of staff time for instruction or not. Kind of is really up to you, but I don't know if that answered your question or not.
Oh, it does. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Good. You all have great questions. Any other questions or just insights or thoughts of how you might use it? Okay, so let me definitely break in if you have some more questions, but let me show you where you can find all this and where you can find the free information. And then also, if you want to subscribe, where you can find that. So our website is www.digitalliteracyassessment.org. If you did type in Northstar Digital Literacy, you would find us. But this is the official website. And I'm going to go there. So here, if you scroll down, you can see over here in the green where it says take an assessment. If you click on that, I'm logged in, so this is why it's giving me this, but it would you'd come down here. You wouldn't see all this, the morning or my name or your name. You'd come down here and here are the assessments here. So they're arranged in those same categories that I showed you on the slide. And then you would just click on one of them to take it. It will start out with some cello music to test your audio. So I do want to say that the audio does come on, so you might want to have headphones. And then it will have an orientation that you can either elect to watch or not. It's probably 5 minutes. And then you would start the test, the assessment. And just to kind of show you what that looks like, let's go into one, the Internet Basics. So I click on it, hear the music, get the orientation, and then I'm here and it tells me how many questions there are going to be. I click on Start Now. Select all of the Internet browser icons, then click Next. So then it tells me what to do. And here's that I don't know option. At the very end of the assessment, it will say, are you ready to submit your answers or would you like to go back and change any? So you always have a chance to change your answers if you'd like. So that's what the assessment looks like. Then if we are, oops, I'm going to go back. To find some of the free instructional material, if you go to build your skills here in the kind of yellow orange, here is where, I was telling you that there's that zip code map. So here, number 1, find a Northstar location. So again, if you yourself don't have Northstar, you want to send one of your learners to a location near them, you can help them look this up. If you're using the free version and you want to find a proctored place that does proctoring, you can also look it up here. And if you have a subscription, then you can advertise here. So what it looks like is, you enter your zip code, and then it gives you a map and shows you all the places near you that offer Northstar. And if you click on one, you can see it tells you, location, what they offer. If they wanted to, they could put details about classes they had here. So for example, this one doesn't offer classes. So that just helps you see what's available to you. The other thing you can find here is, here are those 4 Northstar self-directed online learning modules that I said were free. So again, it's the basic computer skills, email, Microsoft Word, career search skills, same modules. Only difference is you can't stop and start. You have to go through all 90 minutes, or else you have to start at the beginning again. And then here under view other resources, this is where, we know that we don't have now curriculum for every single unit, almost all of them, nor do we have the self-directed online learning for every unit. So we decided that we would curate a list of free websites that were not made by us, that we felt were in line with our standards. We created this probably a year and a half ago, and I will say we aren't maintaining the links, so there may be some dead links in here. But if you want to, let's go to Internet Basics again. Here it tells you what types of resources you can find. So if it's something that you need to read, it's a book. If it's like a video, it's this play button. And if it's something where you have to do something, it's this head with a wheel. So here then it lists, okay, standard 1 for Internet Basics. This is our standard. It's listed here. And then it has 3 resources that we feel teach about that standard. Now they might teach about more. They're all going to look different, but it still is something that we feel kind of matches what we believe that, what we say that standard is. So, and then it would have it for all the standards here. If you want to see the standards, you can find that again on the free version. And the place to find all the standards in one viewpoint is here in the black navigation bar under features. And then this kind of tells you, this gives you more too about what the assessments are like, what the self-directed online learning is like. So if you forget what I told you, you can come down here. But here under the picture, under the blue picture, under her face, it says Northstar standards. So if you click there, then again, they're laid out the same way as the assessment, so they're kind of easy to find. And you click on the standards, and then you can see here are all the standards, for example, for Internet Basics. So if you're using the free version and you're developing your own curriculum, you can look and see, okay, what does Northstar say? What are the skills you should know in Internet Basics? And then I would develop my teaching around those standards. If you want to, let's see, the last thing, if you want to subscribe to Northstar, again, I'm on the landing page, the front page, and I would go to the blue oval to become a Northstar location, learn more. And then I scroll down and it says purchase a subscription. Click on that. And this, has some information for you to fill out. I think I said, but if I didn't, for a single organization, like a single site, so if you're at a single school or a single workforce center, it would be $500 a year. And that would include everything we talked about today. If you are a organization that has multiple branches, so sometimes bigger libraries have multiple branches, then it would be more than the 500. If it's something where you were like a whole state, then of course we give you a discount on the per organization price. So you would submit this application. It takes us about a day or two to set up your Northstar portal. You get an email, the people that are listed as administrators get an email from Northstar saying, create a password and here's the link to your unique URL. And then you're good to go. And then you'd be billed. Any questions that I can answer based on anything we've talked about this morning?
Okay, so I am Mitchell Berger. So I was just on your website and I
Yep.
was just looking and I was seeing like the pricing and it shows, the prices, but how do you access the free version? Or is the only thing free that is the assessment? I think I heard you say that it's not just the assessment, but can you access a free version? And if so, how do you do it?
Yep, so here I am on the website that you are on to, the digitalliteracy.assessment.org. And then, so then all the free assessments would be under Take an Assessment, the green oval. And then all the free curriculum we have would be under the Build Your Skills and the kind of orange oval. And if you clicked on that, number 2 here, these are those free self-directed online learning modules we have.
Okay.
So, that demo I showed you.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yep.
And if you want to pay for it, where would you go?
And so if you want to pay for it, then you would go to, again, I'm on kind of the home page. And under the blue, under Become a Northstar location, if you go under Learn More, and then you have to scroll down a bit to purchase a subscription. And
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Any other questions that people have or comments? We have a few more minutes. All right. Well, thank you all for coming and for your great questions throughout the morning. Definitely makes it more fun for me. And hopefully I did answer all your questions. If you go back from this, this is being recorded. But if you go back from this and you're like, oh, I don't remember what she said, I will put in the chat our website, which is digitalliteracy.assessment.org. And also, if you go to that and you have more you want more information, or you have questions, you can come here again on let me just go to the homepage where it says on the black navigation bar where it says contact us, that you can ask any questions that you have here. And it really sends an email to the whole team, and then the person who is, best fit to answer it and most available will get back to you. So if you can't remember what I've said, or if you have, think of other questions as the day goes on, feel free to do that. You can also contact me directly if you'd like, and my contact information is here. I'll put that in the chat too. If you think of questions as the day goes on or the week goes on. So I have a hard time talking and typing at the same time. So, so thank you all for coming. It was wonderful to talk to you this morning, and I hope you have a great rest of your Tuesday. Thank you very much. Bye, everybody.